There is something far more terrifying than the shadow of a stranger chasing you through a starless forest. There is a wound deeper and more jagged than a blade thrust into your back while you sleep. It is the moment you sit among your own flesh and blood, the people who share your lineage, the ones who held your hand when you were small, and you see in their eyes a transformation you never expected. The cold, flickering hunger of greed and a sudden burning rage. This is the chronicle of the House of Abu Abdallah. To the outside world, they were the golden standard of success in the city. They were the portrait of unity, a family that walked together, prayed together, and prospered together. But wealth has a deceptive, predatory nature. It acts as a solvent that dissolves the masks of civility. When the scent of inheritance enters the room, the thin veneer of compassion peels away, and the true face of a human being emerges, blinded by a thirst that no amount of gold can quench. Abu Abdallah was a man of immense stature, a pillar of the community whose name commanded respect in every marketplace. He had spent 40 years of his life brick by brick, deal by deal, constructing a business empire he believed was eternal. He thought he had built a fortress of stone and concrete, a legacy that would shield his children from the hardships of the world. But in his pursuit of earthly security, he overlooked a fundamental truth. The strongest pillars of any home are not made of granite or bank accounts, but of the hearts that beat within its walls. As the winter of his life arrived, and his physical strength began to wither like a drying leaf, the atmosphere within the grand villa began to curdle. The laughter that once echoed in the courtyard, the shared jokes over evening tea, and the stories of the old days simply evaporated. In their place came a heavy, suffocating silence, a silence broken only by the frantic whispering behind closed doors, a sound reminiscent of snakes slithering through dry grass. His eldest son, Abdallah, a man of integrity who viewed his father as his North Star, began to feel a chilling shift. He felt watched. He noticed that his own brothers and uncles were no longer looking at him as a sibling, but as a rival claimant. The eyes that once reflected warmth now tracked his every movement near his father's study. These were not strangers. These were the people he had shared a meal with just hours before. One evening, while walking through a dim hallway near his father's office, the veil was finally lifted. He heard the hushed, jagged voices of his uncles filtering through the mahogany door. "Are we really going to sit back and let the boy manage the accounts alone?" Uncle Zafiad's voice hissed. "Why must we wait for the old man's heart to stop? Is he the only one who deserves to hold the keys to this kingdom? Every day we wait is a day our share diminishes." That was the moment the poison entered the bloodstream of the family. Suspicion became the new language of the household. Brotherly love was traded for a sharp, armed competition, not fought with steel, but with poisoned tongues and hearts that had turned to flint. On a freezing Friday night, the family gathered for what was labeled a consultation. Outside, the city was quiet, but inside the halls of Abu Abdallah's estate, a storm was brewing that would leave nothing standing. Abdallah would later describe the feeling of entering that room as walking into a den of starving wolves. Uncle Zafiad, a man Abdallah had revered as a second father, stood up. The kindness that usually defined his face had vanished, replaced by a mask of cold, surgical calculation. Without a shred of hesitation or shame, he demanded that the entire empire be liquidated and divided immediately. He did not say, "When my brother passes." He looked toward the bedroom where the sick, frail Abu Abdallah lay gasping for air and demanded his share of the flesh now. When the old man, trembling and clutching the hand of a servant, was wheeled into the room to plead for peace, the horror reached its peak. The patriarch, the creator of their fortune, was no longer a father to them. To his sons and brothers, he had become an obstacle, a living corpse sitting on top of a pile of gold. Shouting erupted, shattering the dignity of the house. Insults that had been suppressed for decades were hurled like stones. Brothers who had grown up in the same nursery stared at one another with eyes carrying the cold wind of death. They didn't see a father in need of comfort. They saw deeds, land titles, and international bank codes. They looked like men ready to butcher a living being, just to see who could claim the larger half. The madness of greed completely dismantled the home. Every night following that meeting became a battlefield. The sanctity of the house was violated as safes were pried open in the dead of night. Legal documents vanished from drawers. Siblings hovered over their father's bed, not to offer water or prayer, but to press his thumb onto papers while he drifted in and out of consciousness. From his dark, lonely room, Abu Abdallah listened to the sounds of his legacy tearing itself apart. He realized his fatal error. He had spent decades decorating the exterior of their lives while their internal characters remained hollow. He had provided them with every luxury, but had failed to plant the seeds of morality and mercy. The most terrifying part wasn't the theft of the money, it was the resurrection of old ghosts. Greed acted as an archaeologist, digging up buried grudges from 20 years ago to justify current cruelty. "You always received the best shoes when we were children," one yelled. "You poisoned Father's mind against me when I was a teenager," another screamed. The wealth became a magnifying glass for every insecurity and every hidden hatred. It turned a family into a group of strangers who happened to share a surname. Eventually, the inevitable collapse occurred. The grand house, the symbol of the Abu Abdallah name, was sold at a fraction of its value just so the combatants could get their cash and flee from one another. Everyone got their share. Every bank account was filled. But as they walked away, they carried a poverty of the soul that no amount of millions could fix. They had traded the warmth of a brother's shoulder for the cold touch of paper. Today, Abdallah walks the streets of the city and occasionally sees his brothers or uncles approaching from the opposite direction. They do not wave, they do not nod. They cross the street to avoid the shadow of the people they once loved. They walk as if they never shared a womb, never shared a table, and never shared a father's embrace. This is the true tragedy of the human condition. Money does not kill you physically, it kills you spiritually by what it whispers to you in the dark. It convinces you that your blood is your enemy and that a piece of land is more valuable than the person who would carry your casket. Abu Abdallah died in a silence that was louder than any scream, the silence of regret. He died watching his creations turn into unforgiving monsters. He realized too late that he was leaving behind a fractured world and a wound that would never heal. So, the next time you find yourself in a dispute over an inheritance, a piece of land, or a business deal within your family, stop, take a breath. Look at the face of your sibling and ask yourself one haunting question. Is this colored piece of paper, which will surely vanish tomorrow, worth the permanent loss of the person who knows your history best? Wealth is a passing shadow, but your brother is your blood. Are you truly prepared to trade the most sacred bond in your life for a world that offers no lasting peace? Because the truth is this: once the light of compassion is extinguished in a family and replaced by the darkness of greed, it rarely ever flickers back to life. The heart is like glass. Once it is shattered by betrayal, even if you spend a lifetime trying to glue the pieces back together, the cracks will always remain to remind you of what you threw away. Remember, when you close your eyes tonight, that the people sleeping under your roof are worth infinitely more than any number sitting in your bank account. Don't let the pursuit of more leave you with nothing.